Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I'm bringing you today what I think is the best video I've created to date. And I did it for you because I'm going to be going out of town over the next couple of days. I've got a minor procedure I've got to go through, and so I wanted to put together what I think is my best video yet. And what I'm gonna make an attempt to I've visually created this. Now I want to tell you up front, this chart that you're looking at in front of you, it is very thorough in terms of the information, but it's not the best in terms of graphics because I'm very limited on what I know how to do. I opened up Google Draw program and I was able to figure out how to piece together this chart, and I'm going to go through it for you. I've done some videos on on some of the connections that Ripple has, but I wanted to put it in a visual format so that you can really see, and I'm going to talk through this and so that you can really see how all of these companies and people tie together and why we are on the precipice of something so huge and massive. Because what you're really looking at here visually, you're looking at the formation of just like what we had with the internet back in the 90s. You're seeing the formation of an entire new market. So I started, of course, with Ripple in the center because that's what we all care about most, is Ripple and XRP. So all of these that are around Ripple or orbiting Ripple here are the investors in Ripple. So you've got CME Ventures, Accenture, Andreessen Horowitz, Core Innovation Capital. All this can be found on their website. But where it gets interesting is where we start to go out from these investors to see who else that they're invested in. And I've told you about some of these, but to me it's much more interesting when you look at it in a graph like this with a little chart like this so that you can really see what's going on here. Let's start at the top. Andreessen Horowitz. I told you before that that's Mark Andreessen. He founded Netscape. Andreessen Horowitz is also invested in Coinbase. They're also invested in Airbnb, which that's interesting because we've all heard Ripple a few times mention Airbnb as a possible company that could be helped by Ripple's software and thus XRP as well. And so I found that one very interesting. Core Innovation Capital is an investor in Ripple. And then we come to Google Ventures. Google Ventures is invested in Uber as well. And that's also interesting because Ripple has mentioned in some of their slide presentations at some of the trade shows they go to how they could also help a company like Uber. Well, Google Ventures is also invested in Robinhood, which is in this digital currency space. We've heard about Robinhood many times over the course of the last year or so, because they opened up a trading platform. You can buy free stocks, and you can also now you can buy, I believe in some states you can buy XRP, but eventually they'll be open to everybody, and you'll be able to sell out of XRP into stocks or out of stocks and into XRP. And then you have Santander Ventures, which is that's also their venture wing of Santander Bank is invested in Ripple. And then we've talked about that as well before, that they're also using Ripple's software, Santander the bank. And then Standard Chartered, the same thing. They're using Ripple software, and they could be using XRapid at some point as well. Seagate is also an investor in Ripple. Digital Ventures is an investor in Ripple. SBI Holdings is an investor in Ripple, and so I researched them a little bit. Turns out SBI Holdings is also invested in Kraken, which is one of the most popular exchanges in the space. But what's becomes really interesting is when we start branching off, looking at some of these branches. If you look at it, Andreessen Horowitz invested in Coinbase. Well, Coinbase has an investor, which is ICE, which is the parent company of the New York Stock Exchange. Wonder why they might be wanting to invest in Coinbase, which is the largest cryptocurrency brokerage. So this begins to put you in the realm of traditional brokerage firms and the traditional stock markets. And you'll see a lot more of that. Well, another investor that's not on Ripple's site, but if you do a little research, you'll see that Pantera Capital has also invested in Ripple. Well, Pantera is invested in Bitstamp, which is one of my favorite exchanges to buy Ripple. And they are huge. They were the first licensed Bitcoin exchange, I believe. They're huge. So that's another tie to Ripple. And then Pantera is also an investor in Shapeshift. You've all heard of Shapeshift, which is you can basically go in and change out a digital currency into another one. Well, where this gets really, really interesting to me is this little company down here that's hiding. Because if I had to pick one venture capital firm that I bumped into that seems to be at the center of everything, it's this one right here. We came here from Shapeshift because we were just talking about it, and that's one of the companies that Digital Currency Group is invested in. But guess what? They're also invested in Ripple. And guess what? They're also invested in Coinbase, who is invested in by the New York Stock Exchange as well. So now you've got you a link between Ripple, Coinbase, New York Stock Exchange, Andreessen Horowitz. Can you see this picture for me? But look, let's go back to Digital Currency Group, because this venture capital firm fascinates me. They are into a lot. Go up here. They're into Abra. Okay. Abra is the other fairly new cryptocurrency platform. They started being talked about at about the same time as Robinhood. Well, the Digital Currency Group is also invested in Kraken, which is also invested in SBI Holdings, which is also invested in Ripple. So you see, you've got a circle right here between Kraken and Digital Currency, SBI Holdings and Ripple. And then the Digital Currency Group is also invested in Circle, and Circle bought Poloniex. Well, guess who's invested into Circle? Goldman Sachs. By the way, Digital Currency Group also owns CoinDesk, which I know that many of you out there think that CoinDesk is anti-Ripple, but I assure you, if Digital Currency Group is invested in Ripple and they got tired of CoinDesk bashing Ripple, that would probably be a stop would probably be put to that pretty quickly, because these guys are in this too. Guess who else Digital Currency Group is invested in? Ledger, your Nano S, the Ledger wallet. I'm sure there's many other companies that are invested in Ledger, but I found it interesting. But I also find it interesting that the number one problem that they've said, the Coinbase said not too long ago, that the final thing that's being worked out is to fix the custody issue, so that you can have, you don't have to worry about your digital currencies being stolen on a large scale from hackers. They can't afford that when you start bringing in institutional money and money from these traditional brokerages. And that's the final issue. Well, here's a link, because not too long ago there was an article where Ledger was partnering with a company on a commercial basis to handle the custody issue on an industrial level. And so you see that they're invested in by Digital Currency Group, who's also invested in Coinbase. And I think the ICE and the NICE may also have a good reason to want to solve that custody issue, as well as Goldman Sachs, who is invested in Circle, who is a co-investor with Digital Currency Group. So I think you can kind of see where all of this picture leads us, and that is to one conclusion, and that is that a massive, massive thing is being built. The structure, this plan has been in the works for quite some time, and what's being meshed together here is the cryptocurrency world and the traditional brokerage world. And cryptocurrencies are the new asset class, and they're going to be brought in. but I don't want you, I tell you often, don't take my word for it. I like to show you from someone who knows a little more than I do, who is a reputable person. Well, I've already told you the digital currency group seems to be at the center of the universe of the whole cryptocurrency space. And so I'm going to go back to a name that I went to before in a prior video because his name comes right up. The digital currency group, I went to them, and this is their website. And when I clicked on the who are we, of course, and this was mentioned in an earlier video, Barry Silbert, CEO and founder. Barry Silbert is at the center of everything in this entire crypto universe. And his quote is, "Banks can't ignore Bitcoin anymore." And he's right. So what I did is I wanted to find out a little bit more about Barry Silbert. And so what did I do? I typed in Google, who is Barry Silbert? And I found an interesting article called Who is Barry Silbert? And it was written in February 17th of 2018. And I kind of was reading through this article, and it talks about how he said he started buying Bitcoin in 2012 at $8 and began angel investing in different companies. He's invested in almost every company in the entire space. So I kept going through this article, and I came down, and this is what caught my eye. The final part of the article where Barry Silbert is where he's being interviewed is called Wall Street Infrastructure. And this is what it's all about right here, because I'm going to read to you what he said, because it is a great quote. This is what we all need to let sink in, because this is why you don't need to worry about your XRP investment at all, because if you own a decent amount of it, you're going to make a mint. This is Barry Silbert. Behind the scenes, infrastructure is being built on ramp, off ramp to enable the Wall Street to access this asset class in ways that you cannot imagine, Silbert said, predicting that a tidal wave of capital from asset managers around the world will make its way into crypto markets in the next 12 to 24 months. So it's coming, people, and I wanted to give you this video because it's coming, and this is a great video for you to go into your weekend, because I'm not going to be able to do any more videos for the next 3 or 4 days. And again, I'm the digital asset investor, and I'm not giving you investment advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. So take your own risks. But I appreciate you watching, and please spread this around. And any of those naysayers that are telling you that crypto's a bubble, or crypto is a pyramid scheme, or this or that, send this video to them and let them poke holes in it, because my experience in talking to anyone who calls crypto a whatever and says it's not legitimate, and there's a lot of them. Most of the people, and I'll say all of the people who say these kind of things, the first thing I say to them is, have you read anything on Ripple, the company? Have you gone to ripple.com and spent 30 minutes reading through there? Because if you did, you wouldn't be saying anything that you're saying right now. You'd be going and you'd be asking me to figure out how to buy it, and I would help you gladly. There's going to be a lot of people left behind, folks. And so I'm just glad that most likely, if you're listening to this, you're either someone who's not going to be left behind, or you're beginning to understand that if you don't get involved, you're going to be left behind. Millionaires will be made. Thanks for watching. Hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and thank you.